Now, without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce our hosts for this evening, Ari Megalis and Christina Stradone. Ari finished his undergraduate degree in business at the DePaul College of Commerce in 2005 and continued on to the Kellstadt Graduate School of Business, graduating in 2009. He started his co-ownership of Maplewood Brewery and Distillery as head distiller in 2013 and opened to the public in 2014. Christina graduated from the School of Computing and Digital Media at DePaul in 2011 and majored in digital cinema with a minor in theater studies. She enjoys talking about spirits and showing everyone photos of her dog, Legs. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for tuning in today. We're very glistening in this
glistening
hot brewery distillery.
It is like 110 degrees in here. I don't know if you guys can tell from the camera link we got here, but yeah, it is a little steamy.
So, added ambiance for you guys.
So that's why we got, nice beer to cool us down.
Yes,
pair with all of these whiskeys. I hope you guys also have some beer to pair with all these whiskeys. Why not?
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that was able to stop in and pick up some bottles ahead of time. You can always come swing by the lounge. We're on Diversity and Maplewood in Logan Square. If you guys want to come hang out, have some beer, have some whiskey and spirits with us, we're open 7 days a week, and we'd love to have you guys join us whenever you're around. First off, I kind of want to start by getting to know Ari a little bit, because what I enjoy most about learning about people who make spirits or make beer is learning a little bit about them and how they got into it. That's just kind of what interests me. So I wanted to kind of ask Ari a little bit about where he grew up, what your interests were growing up, if you played sports, just kind of like general stuff to kind of give people a background.
So actually a fun fact about Maplewood Brewing Company is that it started by myself, my brother Paul, and my longtime friend Adam Cieslak. We've known each other since kindergarten. And then we also have another partner, Kevin Hall, that we also met at DePaul University, my freshman year, actually. So all four of the owners are actually all DePaul alums in one way or another. So my brother went there for undergrad, and Kevin also, of course, Kevin went there for undergrad, and my partner Adam went there for law school.
Yeah.
Out there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we all grew up around here except for Kevin. He's from Wisconsin, which is okay. No big deal.
We'll allow it.
Yeah, but yeah, we all grew up around here, obviously, and yeah, we kind of got into home brewing. Actually, in the college years, kind of going. I think it kind of all started when we used to go over to the Goose Island Brew Pub over on Clybourne. And that's what kind of got us into craft beer. And then we started homebrewing shortly after that. I would say really small batch style. And we used to, then we kind of took it seriously and started homebrewing at the Chateau Ritz Banquet Hall in Niles, which is my family business. So we used to do that on the off hours in this big commercial banquet kitchen. So it was pretty handy to do bigger batches and take it a little bit more seriously. And then after that, we had I had a house in Niles at the time. We had this full size rig in my basement that took up probably 500 square feet of my basement. And we also had we may or may not have a distillation apparatus in my basement with wires coming out of the fuse box. That's kind of how we got into the whole distilling side of things. Because there's a lot of overlap with the process in brewing and distilling. That's why you see a lot more breweries nowadays also adding a distilling element to their business, because it's kind of easier now, legislatively or legally to kind of add that part to your business.
Is it true that you and Adam Cieslak initially wanted to open a distillery first because you kind of thought that the industry is kind of saturated with a lot of craft breweries in Chicago?
That was around like 2013, 2012 when we were kind of thinking about really taking this seriously, and that was the point where I don't know what they call it, the second wave of the Chicago beer breweries or whatever. But then so we're thinking, well, let's just open up a distillery. I mean, we've been distilling kind of casually at home, but let's just kind of focus on that. And then when it came down to it, you know, it was just like, well, let's just fuck it. Let's just do both. And because so much of the equipment overlapped, and there was no brewery and distillery in the state at the time. And Adam kind of saw that as a challenge, I think, and kind of tackled that using his DePaul lawyering skills. And we became the first brewery that was also a distillery in kind of like the same building in Illinois. If we move the camera down, which we won't, but there's like actually a red line on the floor that kind of separates the brewery from the distillery, because you still technically can't have a brewery and a distillery in the same facility.
Yeah.
So this is still kind of technically two facilities. So.
But you kind of got under the radar there a little bit.
Well, there was some quality legal work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Being done there, so everything's on the up and up.
Yeah.
Gonna put that out there.
And if you guys are familiar with Maplewood, you might be more familiar with the beers that we produce on the brewing side. But Ari has been here since day one, getting these recipes all together and distilling and getting everything approved. And distilling is more federally regulated than brewing beer. So it does take a little bit more paperwork, a little bit more time to get approvals for everything and get it out into consumers' hands. So it's definitely been a challenge, I feel, at a craft spirits level to just get the products out there with the equipment that we have. Behind us, you can see our hybrid pot column still behind us. And that is the only still that we currently have. So we are distilling every spirit, all the whiskeys, all the gin that we make on this one piece of equipment, which I think is pretty impressive. We make a lot of different styles, a lot of different types on this one machine.
It is, yeah. When we designed it, well, pretty much all stills are kind of custom these days. So when we designed it, we made it. We made sure that this still was able to be cleaned in between like a gin run or a whiskey run, because gin oils can kind of hide in every nook and cranny of this still, and it takes about an entire day, I would say, to clean the still if we're going from gin to whiskey, to kind of remove all that. A lot of distilleries will have like a separate still that's just kind of dedicated for gin, and the only thing they make in this still is their gin, and that's it. A lot more convenient. That is our plan. We are planning on expanding and looking into a larger production facility. So that is definitely our plan. This thing will probably become our dedicated gin still, and then we'll get one that's about like 7 times the size of this. That will be more for like whiskey and rum and all sorts of fun stuff.
Cool. And liqueurs?
Yeah.
Liqueurs possibly?
Coming out soon. Maybe by the holidays. You know, we'll see. I don't know. Yeah. We just hired a distiller. Originally, I was just kind of the only one doing the spirit side of our program. It's only about like 1% of our sales, so it's a very small part of our portfolio, but it's definitely something that we want to scale and expand on. So we hired an additional distiller that's going to kind of help us grow into that new space as well. He has a lot of more like larger distillery experience, which I don't have. So he brought a lot of that to the table, which is great. And yeah, we're really looking forward to that. But yes, liqueurs first will be coming out, hopefully.
Everyone loves liqueurs, especially for the holidays too.
Yeah.
And that can be something you can mix on your own. That can be something you can gift to somebody or just drink on your own. I mean, and liqueurs can also range a whole different line of flavors. I mean, you can go from chocolate, you can have, grain heavy liqueurs. I mean, can you like tell us a little bit?
Sure. We're working on some things. So yeah, I think one we're working on is like a pistachio cream liqueur, which is pretty great. I'm really excited about that one.
Put that over ice cream.
Yeah. Our distillers from California, the guy that we hired, Dan, he knows some folks out there in the like pistachio business, I guess. He's been getting some cool pistachios for us. So that's exciting. We've already I think we're pretty much done with our chocolate liqueur that we worked on. Now the bartenders are just using it for cocktails, but that's something that we'll add to our portfolio. What else we got? Like a bitter orange we're working on.
Yeah.
We're talking about maybe even a coffee with like a local roastery, or even maybe like a tart cherry or something. Mm-hmm. Cherry's tough though. That's mostly like a European thing. Like lot of like American folks will associate that with cough syrup, but so it's hard to do. It's hard to do cherry right in any sort of alcohol form. So got to be careful with that one.
Yeah. Well, before we kind of continue with process and all that, let's get into some of the tasting. What do you want to do first?
Let's end with the gin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start with
let's do Otter first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to be tasting our Otter American single malt whiskey. Those of you that have picked up that 375 milliliter bottle, we are trying the Otter. And what is this kind of style comparable to if folks weren't able to pick something up here?
Shit, this one is a little unique. It's it's a malt whiskey. So
what's the difference between malt whiskey and?
So this is an American malt whiskey. The difference between like say our American malt whiskey and say like another American malt whiskey that you would see at a distillery that typically does bourbon is and it's also just differentiating factor that differentiates us with a lot of American distilleries is that everything that we distill here is fermented and distilled off grain. So what that means is we lauter everything like a beer. So we'll mash all of the oats and malts, in this case, in a mash vessel, and it is all of the sweet wort that kind of comes from all of that liquid is separated from the grain. So it is a pure liquid that goes into the fermentation vessel where we inoculate the yeast. The yeast converts that into alcohol, flavor, carbon dioxide, of course. That all just blows off for the whiskey purposes, and then that's pumped into the still and distilled. Now with like on grain distillation, which like a bourbon distillery or 99% of American distilleries, they will be fermenting with all the grains. So it's just all a big mash together. I don't know if you guys have ever watched the TV show Moonshiners, but you'll see those guys just mashing all of that stuff kind of together and then fermenting it all together and distilling it all together. So like one style is not better or worse than the other, it's just different. So like our style is more how the Scots, the Japanese, and the Irish do it, where everything is lathered, and the other way is just more American style. So this is kind of a hybrid of like a non-peated Scotch and American malt whiskey. The similarities with American malt whiskey is that it's we take a little liberties of what we're putting in this. For example, like there's oats, a little bit of melanoidin, some like roasted malts, grain. You live in Centennial, you get it. Or what? What's the other one?
Oh my God, Seton Hall.
Seton Hall, yeah, right, Seton Hall. Yeah. Sorry, you guys. I thankfully never. No, Sanctuary was away from that. We had. I was at Sanctuary Townhouse. Yeah, no big deal. Sorry. Okay. That was the best year ever. But anyway, yeah. So Otter, where was I? Oh yeah. So the similarities between this and American whiskey, I would say it's aged in new American white oak. So it's not second use barrels like in Scotland or Japanese whiskey or Irish whiskey typically use like used bourbon barrels as a second use. So it's less intense oak flavor and just focusing on the just aging it, maturation, just developing the esters over time.
But this is first use.
First use. So we want the oak flavor kind of coming into this whiskey. That's more American style. So that would be the main difference between kind of main differentiator between like our whiskey and other things that are out there.
This is about 85% proof.
This one, yeah.
42.5%.
Got to check the label here. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, but ours range between like 42, 45%. They are single barrel, but they're not at barrel proof. We do have plans to maybe like change that in the future as we grow. maybe just having a blended one at a lower proof and then having a single barrel line at barrel proof. Maybe that's something in the future as we kind of expand our program. But
and at barrel proof, does that just mean there's little to no dilution?
Out of the barrel proof is just no dilution, so it'll just go straight from the barrel, whatever it came out as. So every barrel will have its own different proof.
Yeah, because you're going to lose a little bit in the evaporation over time. Of course,
and it all depends on the barrel, like how it's constructed. They're all handmade. We use a cooperage in Minnesota called Barrel Mill. I was going to say they're mom and pop, but they're not mom and pop anymore. Those guys have grown really, really big. Yeah.
I think most of the craft distilleries in the area use Barrel Mill for their barrels, which is great. I mean, there's the industry's there and folks are using them, so it's good. So this is Otter.
So it's oats. This one is primarily oats and Maris Otter. So Maris Otter is kind of like the brewing cousin to Golden Promise, which is a malt that's commonly used in Scotch production. So kind of a fun thing there. So we wanted to tie in a big brewer's malt that a lot of, at least old school brewers, like to use, Maris Otter and oats. So this one really has, the body is what we love about this one, because it's a lot of oats. It's a fuckload of oats for this one. I think it was maybe even over 20%. I have to look at my notes here, but it's a lot of oats and it's hard to water. We still have to separate all that, and oats make everything very gummy. So that's also kind of like poses challenges to us as brewers when we're mashing these things.
Does the heavy oat, make it smooth, or what's the mouthfeel for oats?
It definitely gives it the body, like it's full bodied, and gives it that kind of like that creamy lingeringness on your palate.
Is there any
this particular one?
Is there any whiskey that you could maybe get nationally that you know of that's oat heavy in their mash bill? It's tough as a consumer because they don't have everything on the label usually. So,
a great distillery is like Corsair down in Tennessee. They do a lot of really fun stuff like this, and I think they even have a beer called like oat something.
Oh.
But I think they're distributed pretty well around. I mean, you could definitely go to Marcy Street, Benny's, and get a lot of their stuff. They're actually a big inspiration for us with kind of our whole distilling side of things. They really take some risks and do some really cool stuff. Especially if you go down to Tennessee and visit their distillery, they have like a bunch of these whiskeys that they never send to market that they just did like a few barrels of that are really, really cool stuff.
I also know that Scofflaw on Kedzie and Armitage, at least a few years ago, I'm not sure now, but they have a few bottles of Corsair on the bar. So if you wanted to maybe try a little sample without buying the full bottle, that might be a place to check out.
Also Delilah's
huge whiskey section.
Yeah, they have a lot of stuff from Corsair. But yeah, other than this one, I don't know how you guys typically nose things, but I do the old mouth kind of half open. So I kind of like breathing in through my nose and my mouth at the same time, just so I'm not like burning my nose with all of the alcohol vapors.
That's a good tip. Because sometimes you do kind of get my nose hairs are singed off right now.
You can get really fancy and do the one nostril and then the other nostril, but it might be a little hokey for me. I don't know. But some people kind of get a different different thing. Have you ever tried that?
No, I haven't.
You ever just doing one nostril? And turn the other, and some people say, "Oh, it's different parts of the brain, and you get different things." I don't know.
I don't get it, but I'll try. I'll try it next time for this one.
So yeah, that's Otter.
And what I like a lot about the whiskeys that Ari and our other distiller Patrick makes here too, because they're off grain, it is kind of similar to a beer recipe at the base, right? So it's kind of cool because we're a brewery and a distillery together. So it's almost like, okay, well, we're doing, these similar processes, and we have a similar build on the grain bill. Just the biggest difference between making it into something like a spirit is putting it in the still behind us. So, think of it as kind of like a beer big brother, but don't drink it like a beer because it's whiskey. Don't do that.
Unless you're having a bad day.
there's a time and a place.
Can't advocate excessive drinking. Okay. So anyway, that's OD Otter. And what you were saying about like our beer brewing kind of forming as a base of all this, like that's why we are malt whiskey focused, because we're a brewery. So why not focus on malted barley based spirits? And I think that's kind of why we definitely went with that direction with the type of spirits that we, or at least the type of whiskey that we like to make.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually would be a good segue into our next one, which is our Fat Pug.
Fat Pug.
So this is our, this is the one that we brew and distill the most of. This is I don't know if you ever had our Fat Pug Oatmeal Milk Stout. But we pretty much take that recipe of a milk stout. Obviously, we don't put any lactose in it. And we kind of tweak the recipe a little bit, optimize it for distillation and what we're doing here. And then we do a version of that wash. So when we call it a wash in distilling, and then we call it just, I guess a beer on the brewing side. But so we take kind of all the elements that make Fat Pug, and just up the percentages in that particular recipe for the whiskey whenever we brew it in the brew house for the whiskey wash. So all the roasted malts and things like that, we really kind of crank them up a lot. And hope you guys all have this one, but this one is, especially on the nose, you get the chocolate right away.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of baker's chocolate, kind of dark chocolate notes. And it just kind of reminds you of a stout. And like if you put this in front of somebody and tell them it's a stout, they'll be like, oh, wow, yeah, I can absolutely see that. So this is the one we like to, like I said, we like to make the most of. We actually have a unaged version of this one that we only kind of just released for the bartenders here, and they like to make cocktails out of it because it even has, it's just like this, almost like a white whiskey Tootsie Roll. Yeah. So if you just think of like a Tootsie Roll flavored moonshine is what our white Fat Pug whiskey kind of tastes like.
And I feel like that's probably the easiest kind of recipe to work with white whiskey with, because usually moonshine or white whiskey or white lightning is really hard on the palate. It's just things have not settled and they haven't aged, and it's just a lot in your face. So it's really hard to mix with.
It is. And some distilleries, like they'll just kind of take the same stuff that they put in the barrels and bottle it as white whiskey. So what we do is, if we know we're distilling something as a white whiskey for the bartenders to use, we'll run it through the still a little bit cleaner. It's probably a good time to talk about the still.
Yeah.
So this is our still, as she's mentioned before. The cool thing about this still is that it is a pot still, but it also has an element of reflux to it on the top of the still. So we are able to control the proof and the purity of the spirit that comes out of it just by controlling how much water is kind of fed into the, it's off kind of off camera, but on the top of this is a big giant thing of copper that's called a pre-condenser. This is the actual condenser, that's the pre-condenser. So normally in the distillation process, you'll put the wash that I was talking about before in this big old pot here.
Can we open it?
Yeah, we can open it.
I don't know how much you guys will be able to see, but
no, they're not going to be able to see it. But anyway, we'll open it just for shits and giggles. So what we have is some bubble caps also on the way up to the deflectator.
Are those the portholes?
Those, I guess you can call them portholes. We call them sight glasses. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the whiskey or the wash goes in there, and usually goes in about like 8%. We kind of shoot for around there. That's a good efficient ABV for a wash. There's a steam jacket here that heats it all up, heats the alcohol. Alcohol has a lower boiling temp than water, of course. So the alcohol will boil off first. It'll go up this column and hit a pre-condenser. Some of it will come back down. It fills up these little bubble caps, so it kind of bubbles all the way up. And that's how you kind of control your purity. And then it goes over there into this condenser and then comes out as a white spirit. white or clear or whatever.
Yeah. So you're basically taking the alcohol vapor from the wash,
Yes.
going up, and then you're condensing that back into a liquid. So we're just condensing all over the place.
And so like you'll hear like sometimes double distillation and things like that. So if you don't have a pre-condenser like this is like a modern still. This is what all craft distilleries use these days. If you just had a pot still, you wouldn't have all these bubble caps or a pre-condenser. It would just be like a giant head of copper that's going to the condenser, and you would have to run it through twice. Right. So yeah, you have to run it through twice to kind of get the purity that you can get, or the proof that you're looking for your particular recipe. Sometimes you want to distill things a little bit less pure to get more flavor, depending on the cuts where you're making them. Sometimes you want a little bit cleaner. Like I said, for if we're ever using it as a white spirit for our bar, because and a lot of times when we make those decisions, we think about how long are we going to age something in a barrel. So the longer we age something, we can be a little bit more liberal in the proof that we distill it at, and also the cuts that we do with, like in spirits, like while it's distilling, there's the heads, the hearts, and the tails part. Usually get rid of those two, and you just take the hearts or a small amount of the tails, depending on what character you're looking for. But depending on how long we age things will determine, where we make those decisions. Because the longer you age it, the more you can get away with adding some more flavor, and then the barrel will do some work at filtering out some of the gross stuff in the carbon that's formed while charring inside the barrels.
Mm-hmm. So we want the hearts, we don't want the heads and the tails. We might want a little bit of the tails.
A little bit of tails. Some people even take a little bit of the heads, but the nice thing about these column stills is that you can get a lot of the flavors that pot stills lose in the heads portion. So you can get which are like a lot of the fruity esters and things like that come out first in the distillation run. So that's always fun stuff to kind of collect.
Yeah. And this is also a manual still. So this isn't running, obviously it's not running right now. It's not running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So to make those cuts between the different alcohols with the different boiling points, because they've run all these, batches on the still, you can almost go down to the time, how long it takes to come out, but also by taste, by flavor. Right. So when the distillate's coming off of the little spigot over here, right behind Ari over here, I don't know if you guys can see. But there's two little guys over here. So they actually can taste the kind of the difference between, you kind of train your palate between the methanol that comes out first, has the lowest boiling point, the ethanol, which are the hearts that we do want, and then mostly propanol and butanol that come out last, which I think is crazy because these are so high proof, but you can really get the aroma and the taste of the different types of alcohols. You just have to train your palate to tell between them. So I think that's really, what's part of the craftness of what we do here is being able to do that and only capturing what we want to capture instead of putting everything mumbo jumbo in one thing together.
And also just want to mention, this is where you kind of just sit all day, tasting the spirit that comes out. And in addition to this 100 degrees that's happening now we also have to compete with the heat that's coming from this gigantic still here that's also just blasting you in the face.
Yeah. And then the brew house is just over here, like a couple of feet over here. So there's just constant heat in this room. We're actually going to be starting to do public tours here at Maplewood pretty soon. If you guys are interested in coming and seeing the space, the full space what we have to work with, you'd be surprised how much we can get done in a very small space. So that's going to be really cool.
I think we're going to spend some money on some AC in the new facility.
Oh, that would be nice. Yeah. That would be nice to get some AC.
I think we're due for that.
We deserve it. We can do it. Excellent.
So yeah, that's Fat Pug.
Fat Pug. I want to add too. Fat Pug is a beer and the Fat Pug whiskey that you can really play around with when you're baking or cooking. Fat Pug, the beer, is really great to bake with in cookies and brownies, and you can also factor in a little bit of the whiskey too, just because it has a strong chocolate note and you get those like nice kind of like dark flavors in there. So definitely keep that in mind. If you guys cook and bake a lot, you can definitely use a lot of our products when you're making some food.
I've not tried that.
Yeah.
But we did actually just fill some old Fat Pug barrels and some old Otter barrels with some Maplewood or some maple syrup.
Oh, yes.
From Canada, yeah. So we just filled up a couple barrels of that. So look for those in a few months. I don't know how long. This is what a project that the brewers are doing. So I don't know how long they're planning on aging this maple syrup, but we've had some before and it's just great.
Barrel-aged maple syrup.
Yeah, barrel-aged maple syrup.
Oof. Get boozy at brunch with your pancakes. Just a little bit, though. There's not a ton in there. Just a little bit.
All right. So yeah, let's try the rye.
Yes.
So
My favorite.
this one is actually a rye whiskey. It's not technically a malt whiskey, but it's a rye malt whiskey. So this one is 51% rye malt, and then the rest of it is cherry wood smoked malted barley, applewood smoked malted barley, and oak smoked wheat. So right now, this is the only smoked whiskey that we do. We don't do anything peated yet, but we do some. It's kind of continuing on an American style. We want to do like some more American style smoke, and that's what this is. It's called Rye to Perdition. Dripping all over.
Rye to Perdition.
So
So where are you getting the malt and the grain and
from all over the country. Most of it's from the Midwest. But yeah, there's different maltsters that do different things. These are the smoked ones are from the cherrywood and the applewood smoked malt are from Greece. And they do
Where are they
really, really nice. I think they're somewhere in the Midwest. I think they're
oh,
Midwest,
okay,
so, yeah.
okay, right.
And but yeah, they do those smokes right, and they're just fantastic. And actually, the oak smoke wheat that we use is from Weyermann, which is from Germany.
Ah.
So another kind of thing that like brewers do is they use malt from all over the world even, and we don't really necessarily just kind of limit ourselves to just like local stuff, or like we don't have a farm. Obviously, we're in the middle of Logan Square, so we're not limited to stuff that we're growing on our own farm, which is awesome.
You can pick and choose.
Yeah.
You can pick and choose like what you want to get and like the exact flavor profile.
We think like brewers when we're coming up with these recipes. That's what I think is really kind of innovating the whole craft whiskey scene is just more and more brewers getting into this. So, and I think over the next 10 years, I think American whiskey is going to get really exciting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
this is about 90 proof.
yeah.
Rye to Perdition. Ooh.
And for like 49% smoked malts, the smoke is actually relatively subtle, and that is because again we use new American white oak. So what you're getting mostly is just the barrel, is kind of up front. So and it really settles out the smoke.
Yeah, the barrel industry that you mentioned before is really fascinating to me because there are a lot of regional spirits, like you mentioned Scotch, that they can only use used barrels. And then there's some others like bourbon, which is also a regional spirit that you can only use new barrels. So there's this whole kind of like industry of just like swapping back and forth and getting new ones. And then there's so many things that can affect the cooperage and the barrel makers, like drought and fire and all these things that do affect the whiskey and spirits industry. I mean, way down the line. So it's pretty cool. If you guys want to like YouTube something random, it's just like how to char a barrel and just like finding a little bit more out about barrels. I mean, there's a lot of TLC that goes into it. They're not a cheap commodity either. But it's
surprised
necessary.
how much work goes into just making one barrel. It's nuts. Even at the big cooperages. So.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, that is Rye to Perdition. We got some time for the gin, right? I think we got some time for the
gin. Totally. We also, well, let's talk about the gin first before I talk about the second here. I'll let you pour over here.
So yeah, right now we just have one gin that's out. It's called Spruce Gin.
Spruce.
Nothing wrong with that. No, I think this one.
Oh. I put the pouring.
There you go.
Woo.
No worries. So, yep. There. So this is, it's an American contemporary gin that is based on spruce. So about 51% of this botanical bill is fresh spruce tips that we get from, there's this hippie out in Colorado that forages for it. He's awesome. And we just tell him how much we need a year. He puts it in his freezer, cryovacs it for us, and sends it to us as we need it. This guy's the best. But yeah, it's like I freshly picked stuff all throughout the mountains in Colorado, and that's about half of the grain, the botanical bill, and then the rest of it is kind of like traditional gin botanicals, definitely American style gin botanicals. Juniper, coriander, some citrus, some roots to kind of stabilize some things.
Is there any peppercorn?
There are cherry peppercorns, pink peppercorns.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And then also some lavender, some royal whiskey.
So why spruce?
Why spruce? We were working with some spruce on a beer. I forgot I think it was a collab with somebody, and we just thought about, how fun it would be to put in a gin. There's other folks have done, spruce gins before, and we think it really made sense for us. And also the bartenders were working on a Royobus tea spruce kind of infused syrup they were putting in a cocktail. We're like, I'm gonna turn this syrup into a gin recipe. So that's kind of what I did, and then that's kind of the basis of spruce gin. Also, a fun thing about this one, it's 92% just neutral spirit and then 8% white whiskey. So we added a little bit 8% white whiskey in there just to kind of give it some body and more of that contemporary American style gin feel. When I say like American contemporary style, it just means just over the top and ridiculous. I guess is the best way to describe it unpretentiously.
Yeah. So it's not going to be your London Dry. It's not going to be your
there's
Old
nothing.
Tom. It's not going to be anything like that. Yeah. I love this. I'm a gin drinker, not exclusively because I'll literally drink anything. That's why I work in the industry that I work in now. But I do love gin because there's such a wide array. I mean, whiskey's too, there's a wide array, but especially for gin, you don't have to have a certain percentage of any of the botanicals in there. It's just you have to have juniper in there too.
Well, they say it has to be dominated by juniper. Well, whatever. You can do whatever you want. Yeah.
But this is really neat where I never had a gin with spruce in it before I came here to Maplewood. So this is something I'm like, oh, of course, spruce, because it's so aromatic on its own. The smell of spruce trees and the spruce tips, and it's something that's like, oh, duh, of course you put that in a gin. Like, that's awesome. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so we put like 95% of the botanicals we just throw inside the pot here. And then also that little, you can tell the little cylinder there. We put some of the spruce tips in that thing too. And
basket,
the gin basket or infusion basket, whatever you want to call it. A lot of names for it. And then we just divert the vapor into that. So it kind of gets some different flavors of the spruce before the spirit is actually condensed.
A lot of science.
That's nice.
A lot of science.
And also that gives us the opportunity to make, like, if we ever wanted to do like a Geneva or anything.
So what's the difference between gin and Geneva?
So Geneva is kind of like, we actually made one. So we had some, we have a sour program here at Maplewood Brewing Company where we do some live sours here in our fooders. And we had, I think it was like 3 barrels extra of the Fooders Zest. I don't know if you guys have seen that out in the market lately. But we had some leftover of that, and we just said, well, why don't we just distill it? So we threw it in the still, and we put just a bunch of juniper inside that basket. So by Geneva, it was basically just like a whiskey wash, distilled through the column with some juniper added to it. So I would say the best way to describe Geneva would be like a juniper flavored white whiskey.
Oh, okay. And is that pre-gin? Like, is that like kind of like what people
No,
made?
it's a different process.
It's
It's like
offshoot, okay.
there's like you taking one process out, kind of instead
Gotcha.
of starting with more of a neutral spirit and just letting the botanical shine, you're also taking the elements of the whiskey or the white whiskey itself and adding like a juniper flavor to it. So
what kind, so what other kind of flavors are in there?
Well, that one in particular it's pretty wild. It's
merge it together.
Wild in a good way. It was some wild fermentation, bacterial fermentation, and all that. So that one had some. You can really get like if we had like a funky sour beer, you can really get those notes out of it. Yeah.
Cool. Are we ready to go?
5 minutes until Q&A.
Okay, sweet.
What else we got to talk about here?
I had a question for you.
Oh, yeah?
So what is your spirit of choice? Like, what do you love to drink? If you get to a bar, you belly up to the bar, and you're like, I want
Well, where
this.
am I?
You're in Chicago.
Yeah.
You're at like
I guess, okay, how about this? If I'm at a wedding and there's just like your random stuff that like every like hotel has or whatever, like seafood or whatever.
Readily available.
I'm just having a beefeater on the rocks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Maybe a lime, maybe not. Probably not. I like beefeater. Beefeater is my favorite run-of-the-mill gin that you can find in your corner gas station.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're at a place that has a little bit more crafty,
I'm trying something I haven't tried before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you more like the clear spirits route, or
it doesn't matter? I
Too?
like everything.
Yeah. Well, especially with your job here, I feel like that is to your advantage to try anything and everything, right, to just test out your palate and see what's out there, see what other people are making, because that's important too.
Absolutely. And just see what the trends are, what everything. And it's always like if there's always something you haven't tried before, and you never know where the next inspiration comes.
Cool.
So
yeah, that's fun.
Alrighty. So thanks for everything so far. This has been really exciting, really interesting. Thank you for all the stuff you prepared for us. We've got a few questions here loaded in the Q&A, but I do want to remind everybody that they can still submit questions. We have 3 in here so far, but we got another 15 minutes or so. So hopefully we can get through those 3, and hopefully there will be a few more for us that we can then answer. So first one up here is, you guys have very unique names for your products. How does that process, that naming process occur? What goes into all of that exactly?
I got to kind of show the rolly carts for this one. Okay. So we have that's the amount of sweat. Okay. Anyway, so there's a bunch of brewers that kind of sit over here. If you see those rolly carts over there, but they are they just kind of bullshit back and forth all day and just come up with these ridiculous names. And that's just kind of how it happens.
It is difficult naming something.
That's the hardest thing about this business, is naming stuff. Like sometimes it takes like an entire day. I'm just hearing them just going back and forth arguing about what we're going to name this beer. Sometimes it takes several days. Sometimes it's just boom, right off the bat. It's like, okay, that's what we're calling it.
But you got to make sure that no one has used that name before. So it's like a whole thing where you have to go like on the internet and research about like, has anyone used this name before for any type of product, really? Yeah,
we've had some trademark issues in the past. Oh yeah, we definitely know how to. We are pretty much all experts on how to source the trademark database that the government has for any sort of trademark. So that the easiest thing to do, actually, the first thing we do before we even check the trademark database is just type in the name that we're thinking on Untapped, and if it comes in, it's like, fuck it, it's out. So yeah.
Well, if there's anything that you can speak to on that, someone has asked, what were the trademark issues?
Oh boy, why did I bring that up?
We can leave that one. We can leave that one behind. No worries.
We were initially called one thing, now we're called another. So now we're called Maplewood. That's all that matters.
There you go. There you go. And it's a better name. I bet it's a better name now.
And Fat Pug, I feel like a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, like what's that about? So Fat Pug is like kind of our official, unofficial mascot of the brewery, which is Adam Cieslak's dog, Otto, who is, he's old in age now.
Right.
Yeah,
that's him. That's him right here.
There's a little sticker on there.
Yeah, that's Otto.
And that's our Fat
He's a
Pug.
good man.
We love him. So good.
Excellent. So another question here is your barreling done and stored at that location as well, or is that done off-site? And with that, how long do you barrel your whiskey for?
I'm gonna pick up the camera again.
Ooh.
More
interactive.
camera. Interactive tour here, Maplewood Brewing Company. This is all the whiskey that we have. I mean, you can't see it, but there's a lot more behind all these totes and whatnot. But our whiskey program is insanely small, and we typically age things in our 15-gallon barrels for 2 to 3 years. And one of our plans is with our new space that I was talking about before. There we go, got that framed properly. Like, we kind of have a plan to kind of transition out of 15-gallon barrels and go into more, traditional 53-gallon or barrels. And that's something that we, myself and Patrick, who was a distiller that I was talking about before, are the most excited about, just to really lay down a bunch of barrels that we don't have to worry about for like 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like the smaller the volume, the barrel, like the 15s we use now, the less time it really takes to mature. So when you're using,
Well, there's the less time for oak infusion,
right?
but the maturation part, that's like, yeah, you can't cheat time with barrels. That's the whole thing. So that's why we never want to release anything in like 5 or 10-gallon barrels unless it was just for fun. Because you need at least 2 years to really get like oak, like a catalyst to esterification and really transforming the spirit of the barrel. And that's what you really need time for. And so that's why the good thing is we had beer to cover all the bills the entire time, while we could just, distill a lot of whiskey and let it sit for at least 2 years. So,
yeah.
Right on. One question about sort of brewing and distilling in Chicago. What do you find sort of like unique and special about the industry or the scene in Chicago that maybe is different from nationwide or other places around the country?
This is a good question. Well, I think I would say the amount of like open innovation that happens in like the Chicago brewing and distilling scene. Like if I have a problem with anything, I mean, this is more common in the brewing industry, where like you have an issue with like some sort of thing that you're trying to work out. It's really easy in the beer industry to seek out other professional brewers, whether it's on any part of the country, to get solutions and things like that. People sharing like company secrets and whatnot. Well, not secrets, but company knowledge, I should say, to kind of help you out. And we're seeing that more and more now in the craft spirit world. Before, like 5 years ago, like if I would ask some distiller like what botanicals he would use in his gin, he'd maybe just tell me, we use this, that, and whatever, and he wouldn't give me any specifics. But now, like anybody here in Chicago, like I'll tell them like, hey, like tell me exactly what you use, and they'll tell us. And it's like vice versa here. So I think the amount of open innovation here in Chicago is, I think, more advanced, I think, than kind of where like other parts of the country are. Maybe because it's more of like a tight-knit community here, and we all know each other really well. Like the Illinois Craft Distillers Association is about like a dozen to two dozen folks every time we meet up. Like I think there's less than 50 distilleries in the state. Maybe there's more than 50 now. Yeah,
Probably
I'm
on
not
the
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, probably around.
Side.
But and that's really, really small. And even like when we go to like a national spirits convention, it feels like an Illinois brewers convention as far as the size is concerned.
Yeah.
So
I feel like everyone's trying to make something that's out of the ordinary, out of the box, something that's more unique for people to try or mix with. I mean, it's really kind of testing the limits, like you said, experimentation, like just trying to do like how can we push this, but still make it relatable and make it, good sounding for people to try.
And if somebody is trying to push the limits on something, and I've made a mistake that I can share with that person, like, hey, maybe don't do it this way. That's something that I would love to share, so they don't make the same mistake I did.
Mm-hmm. So sort of a question that is kind of a compliment to this one then is like, it's a question from Christine here in the chat. And it's about any plans for collaboration with any of those sort of like partners in Chicago or in the area, or any important collaborations you've done in the past or anything like that you would like to share with us.
I think we've done a collaboration with almost every brewery in the Chicagoland area at this point.
What about distilleries though?
Distilleries, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we should start that up.
Yeah.
Well, it's
a good idea.
It's easy with a beer. You can just brew a beer, put it in a tank, put it in a can, and it's done. With the spirit, you really have to develop it over time, and then it's like, okay, we did this collab spirit, let's put it in a barrel, and okay, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we'll release it. There's others like non-aged spirits you can do, but yeah, there is an opportunity that has not been explored.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that should be.
I definitely haven't heard of distilleries collaborating before.
Yeah.
It's a lot of breweries, but you guys have.
Let's do it just because that guy said it. Who said it? What was his name?
Christine said this. Yeah.
Sorry, Christine. Christine.
Well, didn't you guys
Here's on
collab?
us. We're gonna do a collab with who should we do collab with?
Well, didn't you do a collab? Just the distilling side did a collab with Old Irving. That's like a distillery and beer collab.
Well, that was a beer that had gin flavors in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's as close as we got. That's as close as we got. All right, Christine, we're gonna maybe we should do it with you because our distiller that that is here now, he came from Few. So yeah.
We'll see.
Time to talk to Few.
Check back with us.
Thank you, Christine.
So here's a question about starting your own business, right? Tips.
Sure.
What tips would you share for fellow sort of DePaul alum who are interested in starting their own business?
Sure, have money. So we bootstrapped the entire thing, and I mean like really bootstrapped it with like duct tape from when we started. It's funny that you brought up that question because one of the first pieces of equipment that we bought was from the brewery in Four Hands. We needed a glycol system to kind of chill our two fermentation tanks that we bought in the beginning. And we drove down to St. Louis to pick this thing up, and it was just like a pile of garbage in the corner, and we had no idea what we were doing. It was like, all right, we're in this now. We're just going to make this work. Let's give this brewery a check for this pile of garbage, load it in our U-Haul, and go and make it work. And we did. We figured it out. We found some refrigeration guy. We just kind of figured it all out together. So more than anything else in the world, maybe give up some equity in the beginning to get the proper amount of funding if you don't have the money.
Yeah, and like invest.
But we did it though.
Yeah.
We did it with
what you had to do.
Yeah, it was a small amount. We got an SBA loan. Use all my instincts from my DePaul MBA entrepreneurship concentration, and that was pretty much it.
But honestly, from what I have experienced too, there are people out there that have money that want to invest in new projects, right? They want to invest in new businesses, small businesses, local businesses. And if you are making your business marketable and there is a kick-ass product involved, then definitely be able to present that well and really kind of get to those people that have that money, those investors, and definitely will help you along the way. Like that's definitely something that I've seen with the places I've worked at before previously.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's definitely those angel investors, kind of go after and whatnot. And I mean, ideally, obviously, if you can do it on your own, that's the best way to do it. And a lot of people will tell you, like, yeah, you can't do it with this amount of money. And I always say, like, yes, start with as much money as you can, but it is possible
It is possible
to do it
Yeah.
with, on a shoestring budget. But
Yeah.
I think we just got lucky, to be honest. So.
Great. Well, Ari, Christina, it's about our time for tonight. Thank you so much for putting this on for us. Thanks to everybody for attending. We appreciate you all so much as well. The recording for this is going to be available on the YouTube Alumni Relations YouTube channel within a couple weeks or so. Until then, we have some other things coming in the next week or so as well. Christina and Ari, thank you again. If there's any way that folks can get in touch with you with any additional questions, let us know. But other than that, yeah, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it's been fun. Go Blue Demons.
Blue Demons.